Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I suspect wherever you are on planet Earth, you have probably already heard the name of the alleged racist in the royal family, because apparently there was a little bit of a mistake and the Dutch books in the Netherlands was released and had named the alleged royal racist as King Charles, no less than the king himself. Right, so I've got a lot of thoughts about that. Number one, it's bullshit. I don't believe it for a second. That's not the part that shocks me. The part that shocks me is the malice. It's incredible, it's unbelievable actually, and after years of watching Meghan Markle and various malicious acts, probably the nastiest being that she wouldn't name the royal, so why even bring the subject up on Oprah, on global TV? But then she followed it up with, oh, I don't think I should say who it is. I think that could be very damaging. Knowing damn well that's damaging. She actually admitted it's damaging, so why do it? So let's start the story at the beginning. Oh, and by the way, you can guess where I am here in London. I've actually walked quite a long way. The sun is behind the building on the other side of the river. At the end of the video I'll turn around so you can see it, but because the sun's behind it, I'm not sure the camera will pick it up. It is where the security services are based. Anyone who's seen the James Bond film where this black speedboat leapt out of the building, that's Babylon. So I thought it'd be rather appropriate to be down here in Vauxhall. Yes, so I'd like you to put yourself in the shoes of King Charles and the royal family, whether you're a monarchist or not, and just think for a minute. You invite someone into your home, they marry into your family, you welcome them with open arms, you pay, well, the taxpayer, British taxpayer, so if it's you, it's not a British taxpayer thing, so it would be you, presumably paying for it, or me. You pay for an exorbitant wedding, exorbitant, in a castle, and all the neighbourhood turn out and everybody's cheering and everybody's very happy, and then you put that person who's married into your family above all other family members. They get exceptional treatment that you wouldn't normally give to other in-laws or even blood relatives. Example, Meghan was invited to escort the Queen on the royal train. So you'd have to sort of think of an equivalent in your lives. For us as a family, we actually did and have in the past invited people into our lives. Not who've married our kids, because they were much younger then, but there was a particular couple that we befriended and we invited them into the sanctity of our home. And we lent them money, and when they were skint, we gave them food, and we helped them get jobs, and we were really nice to them, we really liked them. And then we found out afterwards that they weren't friends at all, that from the very beginning, that when we met them, they had been employed by someone else to destroy our lives as a family and to destroy where we worked. And so we all went through it, not just me and Graham and the kids, all our work colleagues at Dolphin Safari. We really went through the mill, and these two people turned into the most toxic. These are not our two psychopathic narcissists, I hasten to add. They were actually employed by our two narcissistic psychopaths, as it turned out, to befriend us, to be invited inside the family home to find out our security, how our locks, etc., how to get into the property, which they did. They smashed a window on my son's bedroom at 4:30 in the morning. As one example, when I would pass one of them, they would call me the C word, I mean shrill at the top of their voice in front of everybody in Gibraltar. They were saying shit all over social media. I mean, they were a nightmare. Ultimately, what happened was my boss employed the services of a lawyer to compose a letter to the proceedings of getting a court order, a restraining order. The solicitor wrote the letter, gave it to us to check it out. It was absolutely useless, in my opinion. So I completely rewrote it, sent it back to the solicitor and said, can you just sign that and send it? And it did the trick. Magic. Worked straight away. I listed all the things, and all the police incidents and stuff, and the consequences if they continued. And it stopped. Lucky us, eh? Not so lucky for King Charles. Because when you invite people into your life and you're nice to them and you give them hospitality, you don't expect them to shit all over you. How does Omid Scobby know there were any letters between Meghan and Harry? That's a breach of trust. That's a breach of confidence. Whether she has told friends and they have repeated it, she shouldn't have told friends. It's a bit like the breach of trust of her father when she wrote to her father and he was very sad and he put the letter in a drawer and he didn't want to think about it. That wasn't good enough for her, so she told 5 friends who went to People magazine, and we all know the rest of that story. Oh, Judge Warby, hope you're watching this, because he must be feeling an utter wanker right now, mustn't he? A fool. So she's been invited in, and now Harry, who's ostracised and isolated with her, he doesn't have his old friends, his family, he doesn't have any support network. Oh no, I've no sympathy coming from here. No sympathy at all, because he's enabled all of this crap. They've now got Omid Scobby in their lives. He's got Omid Scobby in his life. He's surrounded by snakes. He's got Christopher Boozy. I don't know for a fact, but it looks to me like Harry's really on a downsies financially. Unless he's got some secret income, I can't see how he's sustaining this lifestyle. And he's the laughing stock of the world, South Park, Family Guy. None of the A-listers want to know them at all, probably because of Oprah. So yeah, fuck it, let's go an extra mile and let's name the King of England. Who's in his 70s, 75, isn't he? And he's probably feeling very, very sad right now. Very sad, because when someone that you don't care about says horrible things or malicious shit, you don't care because you don't care about them. But this is his son who's doing this to him and enabling and allowing his wife to do this. I don't believe for a second that the king is a racist. I don't believe any of them are racists in the royal family. They are, the king is the head of the Commonwealth, for a start. They go to many events where they support all races. In fact, Charles is such a progressive and open person. He wants to be the defender of faiths rather than just one faith. He respects that a belief system is a very personal thing, and he defends everybody's right. So that's very far from a sort of perhaps a dinosaur Alf Garnett type character. For those of you who don't know, British people know who Alf Garnett is. Alf Garnett was a fictitious character, very popular in the UK, and the actor was Warren Mitchell. I think he was Jewish, and he created the character to sort of mimic and take the piss out of people who are racist. And it just took off. He was very funny at it, but his point very much was it's not actually funny. I also think that these artificial, and I don't believe Meghan Markle. I'm going to stand with Piers Morgan. I don't believe her. I think she was lying. I'll go that far. I do not believe her, therefore I think it was a lie. That's my opinion. She is not dark-skinned. I'm probably darker than she is. I know she is a woman of colour, technically, because her mother is, but visibly, nobody, I don't think, would ever look at Meghan Markle and Lily White. She is Lily White. Look at her centre parting. She is Lily White. And Harry, who is Lily White. I mean, the only conversation I can think that might happen is someone might say, I wonder if the baby will have ginger hair or dark hair. And a combination of dark hair and ginger hair would probably create a really lovely hair colour. I imagine that it's got to be something like that. To me, racism, an allegation of racism is a very serious thing. And there are racists in the world, unfortunately. I don't understand it myself. To me, it's illogical to hate somebody because of the colour of their skin or their belief system or their sexuality. I've never understood how people can be like that. but people are genuine victims of racism. And when this kind of shit comes up, this sort of artificial shit, it then very much diminishes and takes away from genuine victims of racism, in the same way as if someone cries rape when they have not been raped and they're making it up. They are again diminishing and hurting and devaluing genuine victims. It is a sick, malicious, horrible thing to do. Now, they are trying to distance themselves from Omid Scobby. I'm sorry, that's not possible. They are very much associated with Omid Scobby. The lawsuit, which she brought her of her own volition, nobody forced her to sue Associated Newspapers. She brought that action of her own volition. That's how all that came out. She has only herself to thank that all the Jason North emails came out. If she hadn't have kicked off about her father's letter, which actually, on reflection, looking back on everything, was not a big deal, was it? I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. And oddly enough, she set a precedent herself where she cannot release parts of anything that Charles has written to her because he will own the copyright on it. She could release things she's written to him, I suppose, presumably, because she owns the copyright. But who's going to believe her? After being caught out lying to the court, misremembering, that's what Warby or his colleagues called it. What a laughing stock that court made itself that day. So there's no such thing as perjury anymore, it's just misremembering. So they are very much associated, that is provable, that is factual, with Omid Scobby. They collaborated with the first book, Finding Freedom. They are also very much associated, and they can never disassociate themselves, with Christopher Boozy, who they featured on their Netflix docuseries, of which they had full editorial control. They included him in an entire episode. They cannot disassociate themselves from him either. This is Harry's circle of snakes. People like Christopher Boozy and Omid Scobby. He's gone from being in the royal family, in security, in privacy, allowed to live his life. He's gone from that to this. Because his wife clearly has a very big mouth. She is there telling everybody she wrote to King Charles, he wrote back. What is all this nonsense about? It was an accidental publishing mistake. As far as I'm aware, the word Charles doesn't mean something like, some people's names can be a word, or they can be a name of a city. Some people are called Charity, for example, and the word charity has a meaning in its own right. It's not necessarily a name. But the name Charles, as far as I'm aware, doesn't have any other meaning. I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments, of which I cannot read until I get outside of this circle of steel. I've probably just walked into the thickest circle of steel ever possible by being so close to Babylon. So how did the word Charles, the royal racist was Charles, how did that, I watched Andrew Gold, by the way. In case you're not aware of him, Andrew Gold is a fabulous YouTuber. I believe he used to work for The Sun, he's worked for other publications. He does a very, very good channel, excellent channel. A lovely young man, very nice voice. And he got a copy of the Dutch version, presumably translated it back into English, and he read it out, and I watched that video this morning. So I believe by tea time, probably the mainstream media in the UK will be saying this, and there are going to be people who will have a lot to say on this subject. And if she thought Oprah has brought her trouble to her door, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, this one is going to bring big trouble. I mean, it's just a continual act of self-destruction. She must hate herself more than anybody else in the world in order to do these things. It's really quite incredible. As you can tell, I've got so many thoughts going through my head. I mean, I wake up this morning, and Graham said to me, have you seen, because Graham didn't know Andrew, he said, have you seen this YouTuber, Andrew Gold? He's just, because we were watching Good Morning Britain and Susanna Reid's there, irritating the hell out of me as usual. I mean, is she going to carry on sticking up for Meghan and Harry? never mind if Omid put it in a book accidentally or not. He must have written that. He must have done. I mean, how else did those words get in the Dutch version? To me, I think people are going to be talking about that. The publishers need to answer questions there. I don't believe a word that Omid says, because he's admitted himself, he's lied about his age, he's lied about various things. He lied when he said Meghan and Harry didn't help him at all with finding freedom, as we all found out. He says he has friends in common with them. I'm thinking maybe Marcus Anderson. Now, I could be wrong on this one, but I seem to recall someone said it wasn't Marcus and Omid, weren't they a couple at one point? I don't know. I'm not sure. How do they know each other? Maybe, again, some of you can tell me in the comments, of which I will not be able to read. But I mean, what a malicious thing that she was so much money and time was invested in her, spent on her, welcomed not only by the Royal British family, but by the British public. I mean, just look back on the videos of the wedding and see the turnout and the goodwill. And then to just really turn around and bite the hand that feeds. That's the expression that comes to my mind. She has bitten the hand that feeds, literally. She's been on her downsies for a long time, but I'm going to just love watching this one. And it's often the case that when people are angry and they want to hit out for whatever reason, generally speaking, what they end up doing is hurting themselves. And that's what I see her doing. I can't believe Harry's allowed this. It's shocking. Princess Diana would be horrified, absolutely horrified. Does anybody out there think Princess Diana would have married a racist? How does William feel about all of this? I don't know who the other member of the royal family, who apparently was loosely referred to in the Dutch, only in the Dutch copy, apparently, not the British copy. I've not bought the book. I'm not going to buy the book. I'm not going to give that little snake a penny of my money. If I find a copy in a bin or a library, I might sit down in the library and have a quick flick through, but I'm not going to give him any money at all. I think this, and I see his image is just getting more and more bizarre. Talk about acts of self-harm. It's extraordinary. And I do very much think back to those people that Graham and I stupidly invited into our lives. And these days now, ever since that couple, we've been very cautious of who we allow back to our boat or our house. I mean, we do YouTube videos in our homes, but we don't show security. And it's really ever since that time. You have to be very careful. And I'm sure there are lots of people out there who will be able to sympathise and relate to Charles and think, you poor guy, wow, how awful for them. Makes me think of her brother's letter when he wrote to Harry, didn't he? And he said, don't marry her. This is going to be the biggest mistake in the British royal family's wedding history. She's a nightmare, didn't he? He said she was manipulative. He said, you will regret this. You will live to regret this. I can't remember his exact words. I'm sure it's on the internet. You guys can look it up. Right, I'll try and show you Babylon, but the sun is very bright, so I think you'll only be able to see a silhouette of it. Let's go and have a look. Fabulous building, I love this. It's sort of something a bit Egyptian about it, actually. And I love that Bond film, and the little speedboat pops out. Right, here we go. I don't know if that's going to come out on the camera. It's a lovely crisp morning in London. Can you see it there? It's that, yeah, that's the silhouette of it. Well, you can see pictures of it on the internet. You don't need me to show you. So, those are my thoughts and opinions so far. That's what I'm thinking today. I mean, they are never going to be invited for Christmas. If they're invited for Christmas, then the royal family they're fucking stupid, aren't they? If they do invite them. And it does make me wonder, as blackmail, not literal blackmail, but, you know, like, oh, if you don't give me this, I'm going to tell everybody. Has something like that been going on in the background? And I hope that now this is out, I hope Charles just goes, right, well, that's it, you know, you're done, we're done here. It must be awfully painful for him that it is his own son doing this. Horribly painful. I think of all the daggers in the back, well, I think this is the worst. Thank you very much for listening.